watching Dirty Laundry TV. I'm your host, Carrie Kay, and today we have Dan Deacon.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Beast on my brain, every thought is the same. If the beast is controlled, it'll never.
You seem like a good, clean, fun time.
I don't want to discourage the discovery of people into the pathways of their brain that you need, guides for. I'm
Right.
a big fan of psychedelics, but I kind of feel, and this is maybe the weird hypocritical point of view, but I just don't think they should be taken recreationally. Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
Yes.
I don't know, not shouldn't. I'm going to rephrase it. I don't like taking them recreationally.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna take psilocybin or salvia or something, I'm not gonna go to a party. I feel like it would be the worst thing I could do to my own brain, let alone the company of others. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So,
do.
especially since I play in the audience when someone's completely out of their mind on some sort of weird pill that Baxter Stockman made or something like that. It's disheartening, and it's also just difficult to communicate with someone who's on a different level of reality. Do you know what I mean? Who's seeing reality through a different screen or through a non complementary dimension. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense,
Cool.
actually.
I like when I say things like non-complementary dimension and it makes sense.
I like it too, Dan.
Thank you.
You were working on a film with Francis Ford Coppola. What happened with that?
It came out in a festival run, and I believe you can buy it in Denmark.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm sorry, I keep kicking your foot.
That's okay, I'll kick you
And
back.
and in France and Japan, but it did not get a theatrical release in the States. I don't know if there's any plans for it, but it was called Twixt.
Twixt?
And and that was a couple of years ago now. I've actually never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No, they won't send me a copy.
What was the concept?
It's about a Val Kilmer's the star, who's an awesome guy. Love Val Kilmer. Val plays a horror writer in the twilight of his career. It's not going well. He's having problems at home, and he's on a book signing tour, and rolls into this spooky town and falls into this murder mystery with ghosts and vampires, and it's pretty cool.
Cool. What
And
was...
they picked me to write the music because all my music evokes ghosts and vampires and
Yeah, it does.
spooky murders of children, and it's I don't know, I think it was an odd choice, but there was originally this higher concept to try to tour the film and perform it live, and that's how I think I originally came onto the project. And Francis wanted a way to try to have film break away from the constant A to B situation of what a film is. It's always been locked in with the technology of having to be set in one particular way, and I think you heard me doing an interview where I was talking about how music has this amazing ability, or this amazing, not ability, but I think you know what I mean,
Yeah.
where it can exist in a documented form and in a live capacity, and they can both have very different effects on the audience, but be one piece. A piece of music can be both a recording and a live performance, and it can breathe and it can change and it can evolve, where a film, once it exists, it's one thing, which is beautiful in its own regard, but now that we're at this level of technology where the medium doesn't have to be dictating what the output is, you can really explore with it more, and I think that's what we talked about a lot. We talked about touring the film, but it just never came about, unfortunately.
Who were you surprised to find out was a Dan Deacon fan?
Anyone.
Anybody at all?
When I first started, it was really difficult to get any sort of traction or momentum, and then eventually it started to grow, and then it sort of just I don't know, exploded is the wrong word, but it started getting larger and larger, and it still blows my mind when I go to a show, and it's not just, I always think every show is going to be there's no one's going to be there, it's going to suck, we drove 8 hours for nothing. But that's sort of a cop-out, I have this false modesty. Who I was surprised, I guess Michael Showalter and Michael Ian Black.
I love them.
I got an email from them, and they just said they were big fans, and it was really made my day.
That would make my day too.
Yeah, I grew up loving the state and really loved Stella and all their work, and really, this was just recently, so it was cool.
Nice, congrats.
Thank
That's
you.
huge. You opened for Devo. How was that?
It was kind of like a heartbreaking moment.
Why?
Did you guys ever watch Doug, the show Doug? You know, like Doug had these, like, for those of you that aren't 30, Doug had these delusional, like, daydream fantasies of, like, everything going awesomely, and then obviously everything would be smashed. And in reality would be this sort of, like, normal or tragic situation. Maybe I see Doug in a much darker lens than it actually was cast in. But anyway, so, you know, huge influence, favorite band, asked to open for them, very excited, super pumped, play the show, go backstage, their van pulls up, they jump out, they're eating Chipotle, and it's just like, oh, cool, you guys ate Chipotle instead of watching me play. That's understandable. That's fine. Sort of just like that heartbreaking moment when you realize your favorite band was just sort of like, let's get some like crappy burritos instead of seeing this dickhead. Later, like, Jerry Caselli apologized because I guess he heard that I was kind of bummed because I was crying. No, I wasn't crying. But I guess they just didn't know I was, because we did this like joint interview together, and he was like, when you go on? And I was like, oh, I actually just finished. He's like, oh no, and I kind of, I don't know. It was weird, but I think it was a good learning experience, and to never have expectations, to never assume that like something's going to go the way you want it to go, or, you know. And I think ever since then I've enjoyed experience more. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes, a whole lot of sense.
I bet those burritos were pretty good though. I had to do a piece for solo voice when I was in school for music, and it was in this sort of like, I don't know, narcissist, rebellious dickhead stage of my academic career, which was start to finish. And I didn't want to write something for an operatic voice, and I was more into performance art at the time, or like Fluxus stuff. I know I looked in the camera for like Fluxus stuff. And so I just recorded me watching television with the sound off, and put it on a CDR called Beetle Mice. And that's how it entered into the world. And this was like, I don't know, 2002 I put the CD up?
Yeah.
Or 2003, I can't remember. And this is pre-YouTube, or maybe YouTube existed at the time, but it wasn't popular, it wasn't on YouTube. But it was started getting popular on these like comedy message boards. And the only way I knew is because I had a link to download it on my website, and I could check my web stats and see where it was getting downloaded from. And I saw it was getting like thousands of downloads when like my rest of my website was getting like 24 hits a day. And then I guess in 2006 or 2007, Liam Lynch, the guy who made Syphil and Ollie, which was a show I loved, contacted me about, he's like, oh, I want to make a video for it, and I'd like to use your other song for the theme music to my podcast. And I was like, great. What do you have in mind for the video? And then like the next email, I was like, here it is. So I think he just assumed he wouldn't find the person who made this thing, because, you know, there's no, I honestly don't know how he tracked it down. It must have just been like information embedded in the MP3. Do you know what I mean? Like how you can put like title and track information?
Yeah.
It must have been the only way he found it, because if it was a copy of the MP3, there's no way he would have found it. Or me being it. So anyway, and then the video was on his podcast, and then I guess a year later, someone ripped it from his podcast and put it on YouTube, and then somehow it just exploded and became this thing that like people in offices really loved. Or I still get emails from people being like, we're all over everyone in my platoon in Iraq, or whatever. I don't know if they have platoons. We all love it. Not my turn, not my problem. Fuck you, yeah! Like so. But I also like sort of have this hate relationship with it, because the rumor that got out was that it was a recording of a guy on acid that his friends were recording. And
like trapped in a closet or something,
yeah,
right?
and so I can understand trying to explain something that makes no sense with drugs as the outcome. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, this must be because of drugs. But considering I thought it was a pretty funny satire person, it's supposed to be someone from Long Island. I grew up in Long Island, and it's supposed to be like an absurdist take on what a quintessential Long Island person is like. And I guess the reason that it still like haunts me is because like, even like, you know, Sarah Silverman tweeted about it, and like it wasn't ever like, check this out, this is funny. It was more like, listen to this person being tormented by their reality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And considering I made it in a conscious mind and I did think it was funny, it was just sort of like, well, couldn't you just like it for it? You know what I mean? But that's the whole point of the internet, is that well, not the point, but it's become the point, like the weird, like, Cylon rendition of the internet, is that it takes what you do and it makes it into what it wants to be. It's like fact by democracy rather than fact by fact. Like, the masses decide what something is rather than something being. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's like the crazy idiocracy future that we're like drifting towards. And you know, it's one of the reasons why Wikipedia is awesome and Wikipedia is scary, is because fact is dictated by a majority rule rather than an accurate historical view. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
So tying that into drinking out of cups is kind of an insane stretch, but that's that.
We're with you.
If we're in this,
We're along for the ride.
cool.